So after you talk, I go?
Yeah.
Are you going to be like, Allison, what do you
Alright,
have to
sounds
say?
good.
I'll probably just be like, does anybody else have any things that they want to like add on? Move that
Well,
chair.
Bailey, an example of affirmative action is the Supreme Court case, Regents of the University of California versus Bailey. In this case, Alan Bake, a white applicant, applied to the UC Davis Med School and was denied admission.
Alright, ready?
He and his lawyers.
I don't have much storage, so we're just gonna go.
Did you already pray?
Yeah.
Oh, so we're just gonna cut out the beginning.
Yeah.
All right. Perfect. Welcome back to fifth period talks. All right, so we got a question this week regarding affirmative action. What is affirmative action, you ask? That's a great question. Affirmative action is the practice of creating equality by favoring minorities, usually in higher education or employment. So, the first person to actually use the term affirmative action was President Kennedy in 1961, coming out of the Civil Rights Movement. So it was actually kind of centered around African Americans for the first part of being used. And he said, quote unquote, affirmative action is to ensure that applicants are employed and that employees are treated during employment without regard to race, creed, color, or national origin. And before this happened in 1941, Franklin D. Roosevelt actually had an executive order similar to this where he outlawed all those same things. He just didn't use the term affirmative action at that point. Then the last one that we actually saw, the last executive order, was in 1965 by Lyndon B. Johnson, where he was prohibiting employment discrimination for organizations receiving federal contracts and subcontracts. So do any of you guys know anything about affirmative action?
Bailey, I sure do, and I'll give you a great example of it. An example of affirmative action is the Supreme Court case, Regents of the University of California versus Bake. In this case, Alan Bake, a white applicant, applied to the UC Davis Med School and was denied admissions. He and his lawyers found that his test scores and application in general were better than some of the minorities and women who were admitted ahead of him. Since this is America, what did he do? He sued! He argued that the university violated the Equal Protection Clause and denied his admission because of his race. The court sided with Bake in a close 5-4 ruling, saying that colleges and universities do have the right to try to make their student body more diverse. However, they cannot have quotas which define a specific number standard of hiring or admitting a certain number of minorities. This case made mandatory quotas unconstitutional, yet it made it clear that affirmative action was allowed. This case addressed affirmative action, but it did not entirely solve the issue, as this issue is still debated and controversial today.
Yeah, so there's actually a couple court cases that are happening right now about affirmative action. It's a very controversial topic still today, despite past court cases like that. One of the most publicized is Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard, which is currently happening right now. Basically, a group of Asian Americans are claiming that they're being discriminated against and are being unfairly denied from the college because of their quotas. This is because Harvard has a ranking system, so Asian Americans are consistently ranked the highest for academic performance, but the lowest for Harvard's personal rating, which ranks applicants based on like their likability. So a lot of people are saying that this is unfair and discrimination. This court case hasn't been decided yet, but we'll keep you guys updated. The second thing that's happening right now is the Trump administration is trying to limit affirmative action by rescinding Obama guidance documents basically saying how to legally weigh race in admissions to ensure a diverse student population. So the Trump administration just ruled that Texas Tech cannot consider race in college admissions. This is a very controversial ruling, and the American Civil Liberties Union actually is claiming that this is an attack on people of color.
Not only does affirmative action happen in education, though, it also happens in the workplace. Affirmative action has always been controversial, with views on it generally being along party lines, where, according to the Executive Order 11246, all federal departments, as well as businesses that receive federal contracts, must prove evidence of an affirmative action policy. This means that while all companies must follow anti-discrimination laws, federal contractors must also show proof of affirmative action. Additionally, the CEOs of these contractors must provide a written statement in support of equal hiring practices. Some of the more controversial practices of affirmative action in the workplace include preferring minority candidates over others with the same qualifications, setting quotas to save spots for minority candidates, as well as providing lower cutoffs for eligibility tests to minority groups. Opponents to affirmative action claim that hiring practices such as these provide one racial group a benefit over another, thus creating a non-colorblind system.
Wow, so it looks like we learned a lot about affirmative action this week. If you'd like to send us a topic to talk about, feel free to message us. Otherwise, we'll see you next week on 5th Period Talks.
All right, that was good.
That was
Hopefully it was
good.
recording.
And we all did the thing